Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good day. My name is Muhammad Nazmi bin Muhammad Husaini from BA 2463P.
And hi, my name is Ameer Faiz bin Ramli from BA 2463P. We'll present about the topic region 3, which is East Asia.
Without further ado, let's begin our presentation. The topic given is Region 3 is Asia. Did you know Asia is the largest continent in the world? Yes, and East Asia is a part of it. This is the world map of East Asia. As you can see at the top right is the location of East Asia. So let's take a look.
To the map of East Asia here, you can see here.
The voice said into the map of East Asia here, you can see what you can see is a map of East Asia, of course. So the map included Mongolia, China, Taiwan, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, and not to forget Macau and Hong Kong. Countries in East Asia, starting from Taiwan, Japan, Hong Kong, Mongolia, China, South Korea, Macau, and North Korea. Total is 8. So there are 8 countries in East Asia. 1.0 Introduction. East Asia Miracle. The reemergence of East Asia as a region with world political, economic, and cultural impact was a major event of the later 90s. In 1990s, East Asia Miracle term were made because of the major impacts of world politics, economic, and cultural. Today, East Asia led by China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. The world region was home to 24% of the world population and produced 20% of economic output from 9% of land area. East Asia is the third force in the global economy. So apart from European countries, American countries, East Asia also is the powerhouse of the economy. As you know, China is the major trading countries in the world. Like our own countries also depends on China's material because it is a low cost. Did you know East Asia countries also has faced poverty, like from poverty and defeat to renewed eminence or from zero to hero? Between 1960 and 2000s, Japan has become the world's second richest country at that time. And behind them, there are countries like South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong that has expanded their fortunes of their national income like from 6 to 7-fold at that time in 1980s. In 2002, China has overtaken Japan GDP at that time. So what a mind-blown stories from East Asian countries, and that's why there is a term East Asian miracle.
So I will start with 2.0, Climates of East Asia. So they have 3 subtopic. 2.1 Subtropical rainy climate, 2.2 Continental temperate climate, and 2.3 Arid or semi-arid climate. 2.1 Subtropical rainy climate. A subtropical rainy climate has summer southeasterly winds that are drawn into Central Asia as the continent heats up and warm air rises in areas of low pressure. A humid subtropical climate is a zone of climate characterized by hot and humid summers and cold to mild winters. Wind brings moisture from the tropical ocean and heavy rains. In mid to late summer, the heating of the Pacific Oceans makes the region subject to typhoons, which is hurricane, with strong winds and rain. In winter, the winds blow outward from the high pressure over the cool continent and are cooler and drier. Average temperature of the cooler month is less than 80 degrees Celsius, while at to 12 month with an average temperature at least 10 degrees Celsius. 2.2 Continental temperate climate. Further north, in coastal China, the Koreas, and Japan, the continental temperate climatic environments bring summer rains and drier winters. From south to north, conditions change as they do in the eastern parts of North America, from Cuba and Florida to New England and Newfoundland. Although summers have periods as warm as those further south, icy winds blowing from Siberia makes winters much colder. Japan receives more winter precipitations than the continental countries after the winds blowing from the continental interior pick up moisture as they cross the Sea of Japan and precipitate snow on the west-facing mountains. 2.3 Arid or semi-arid climate. A semi-arid climate or steppe climate is the climate of a region that receives precipitation below potential evapotranspiration but not as low as a desert climate. Arid climate is known for being dry. This climate is mainly found 30 degrees north and south of the equator. Despite the lack of water, plants and animals have found ways to survive in this climate. The western parts of China and the whole country of Mongolia have arid or semi-arid climatic environments because of their distance from the oceans. Humid ocean air loses its moisture by precipitating before reaching the interior. Winters are extremely cool. In the westernmost part of China, high altitudes in the mountains and the Tibetan plateau cause even greater summer-winter and daily range of temperature. Mountain system and relatively small areas of lowland from the diverse relief of East Asia. High mountain extend eastward from the Himalayan range and the Tibetan plateau, occupying over one-third of China on the border with Nepal and India. The Tibetan Himalayas are the world's highest mountains, including Mount Everest, and nearly 50 other peaks that rise over 7,500 meters. Although the high proportion of mountains and destructive events such as a difficult environment for human occupation, the region supports some of the highest densities of population in the world.
3.0 Environmental problems. Environmental problems can refer as follows, starting from natural hazards, human impacts and responses, diseases and pollution. Environmental problem is a must in every part of the world, included East Asia. So when there are high populations densities in certain part of East Asia, the chance of environmental problems will likely to occur at that part or at that areas. So we will going to look one by one. First is 3.1 natural hazards. Natural hazards can be in the form of earthquake, typhoon, floods, and even volcanic eruptions. So the first case is lying along a convergent plate boundary makes Japan subject to major earthquakes, such as the one in 1995. that destroyed much of Kobe and occasional volcanic eruptions. So what is a convergent plate boundaries? Convergent plate boundary is when there are two or more lithospheric plates means a rigid solid rock in the bottom of the earth. When there are two things that collide each other, so they will more exposed to natural disaster like earthquake. So in result, in 1995, it has destroyed much of Kobe. So where is Kobe? Kobe is a city in Japan, on Osaka Bay in the central part of Japan. So next case is in 1976, a massive earthquake hit the coal mining area, which a geologic activity area around Tangshan in northeastern China, that killed about 242,000 of people. Also, it happened on local scale and in neighboring countries of China. So the third case is a flooding cases. Flooding cases is an annual hazard on the lying major river plains. So flooding is a common natural disaster where in Malaysia also happens. Chinese flood hazard attract publicity because of the large numbers of people affected when Huanghe or Changjiang floods. But in 2010, when summer comes, this is named a 2010 summer floods, where the flood is the worst case of floods in China or in the state of China, where it killed hundreds of people and have to displace millions of them to a safer place. Despite the hydroelectric gravity dam that named Three Gorges Dam, I don't know how to pronounce Three Gorges Dam. Three Gorges Dam function is to handle inflow of water and held back the flood water. So despite the big dam, flood also can cause some problems because dam also has its limits. So that's all about natural hazard. Okay, next is 3.2 human impact and responses. So human impact means all activity that conducted by human that are meant to build something, to develop the city or the country, and in exchange of the develop or building something, human create deforestation and so on that destroy the nature. And responses mean what human or people do regarding to protect or to overcome the problems. So simple words is human is the cause of the natural disaster, but from Islamic perspective, I take it from the Quran, from Surah Ash-Shura verse number 30. I just simplify it. So Allah create something like a natural disaster like tsunami, earthquake and so on because of what human do. So I'm back in my primary school, or I don't know the exact date or exact year of the tsunami issue, or tsunami disaster happens in the Aceh. But what happened before the tsunami is the people of Aceh has been committed to many sins and forget to their God. So Allah landed tsunami to them to teach them to be more thoughtful and back to the Islam. Also back to the human impact and responses. The first point is in 1981, 1991 and 2000 floods, which I mentioned before, the summer floods along the Changjiang happened because of the excessive deforestation, that cutting lumber so on to build something, to make something in the upper parts of the river basin. Before that, what is river basin? River basin is the portion of land that drained by a river. So the deforestation has disturbed the natural process of natural natural system of the earth, which is the tree or the forest. When too many trees is being cutting down and demolished, so the flood will happen. So back to the deforestation, it creates soil erosion, downstream floods, and silting. Silting means when the drainage is blocked by something like fine sand or other raw materials. So in result, in urban areas, the floods makes urban areas full of mining polluted water with toxic chemical and waste. But in the mid 1990s, the opposite things happened when in the most northern Huanghe basin suffered too little water. So before this, too many water because of flood, but this time is too little water because of breeding dams in the headwater areas. So the breeding dams in the headwater areas has disturbed the overflow of downstream, and the effect is it reduced the overflow of downstream. So what government do or responses? So the one of the method is government agencies responded by planting a great green wall of trees. So this is actually positive effects regarding the environmental problems when dust storm in Beijing begin to reduce, and it is a sign of success. Second responses is a forest planting to protect the landscape of China. So this forest planting has become the main features of many parts of China to develop this method to protect our nature and our forest. So it's starting from 1980s that many parts of China are starting to develop forest. Let's continue to 3.3 diseases. First and foremost, East Asian countries are notable for their improvement in healthcare provision in the later 90s. However, HIV/AIDS is an increasing threat in China later. It was recognized as a national problem in 2001 when health officials in China admitted to a very serious epidemic. It is not a pandemic but only a epidemic. At the end of 2010, the United Nations Programme on HIV/AIDS estimated 750,000 HIV sufferers in China. So HIV is actually a virus and AIDS is the condition or diseases. One of the sources of HIV is in Henan province, where from the late 1980s several countries made an industry blood collection. China became subject to a virulent from influenza, the sudden acute respiratory syndrome, the acronym SARS, which is spread widely to other parts of the world because officials were reluctant to reveal the problem. A number of travelers caught it and returned to their home countries. So facts and data actually is really important to other countries to help to monitor the numbers. So don't lie to your people. Better they know and be panic. Otherwise, they do not know the current data. Between 2003 and 2011, there have been an amount of 5 to 6 cases of the avian flu and 311 deaths globally. So after HIV, after SARS, and then there are avian flu. And last but not least, the current situation that we stuck right now, and we have to go again in MCO, or what we call is CMCO right now, is coronavirus disease 2019. The acronym is COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, So this is a pandemic, really a serious matter. This is more threat than HIV, because only direct contact with the coronavirus sufferers we can also get the virus. So the disease was first identified in December 2019, which makes last year, in Wuhan, the capital of China's Hubei province, and has since spread globally, include Malaysia, resulting in the ongoing 2019 and current 2020 coronavirus pandemic. So we do not know when this disease will be defeated. So actually I have this some thinking in my mind. Is coronavirus really a nature what we call nature reaction of a microorganism, or is it man-made? So the question is man-made or is like a virus, actual virus? So that is all for diseases. 3.4 pollution. As East Asian countries become more modernized, same goes to their industrial activities. They use more vehicle, they require more factories, and same goes to their chemical use like fertilizers to crops and so on. So first point is 5 Chinese cities, which are Beijing, Shanghai, Shenyang, Xi'an and Guangzhou, are among the 10 most polluted cities in the world. It is partly because of China depends strongly on coal by 80% of its energy needs. So it also leads to acid rain at that time. Water pollution is particularly serious around the expanding major cities, where raw sewage and untreated industrial effluents are common along rivers and in offshore fisheries. So these issues has happened in the 1960s, where high mercury levels from industrial processed poisoned fish and killed over 1,000 Japanese people who ate them, but this problem has been solved by measure and test. So due to the polluted water, and the Japanese people ate them and they die because of the poisoned fish. Lastly, in the northeast China, heavy metals from the metallurgical industries around Shenyang polluted local drinking and crop water, and these things had lead to the birth defects to newborn baby, like they may have a defect on their hands, on physical or something like that, and also it caused a drop in the life of expectancy by 10 years. So pollution also common in Malaysia, where it happens back in 2019 or 18 in Sungai Kim Kim. So pollution happens everywhere in this part of the world. So by using the environmental law, we can report it to the people who in charge of the case, so we can keep this world clean. So just keep this world clean, because it's a part of sunnah. So let's continue. Next, we are going to dive deeper into cultural and political influences. Below are the subtopics of cultural and political influences. We have Chinese Empire, Japan isolationism, Korean origins, and responses to European intrusion. We are going to start from introduction. First and foremost, Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese share many cultural characteristics, including Buddhism, the use of Chinese script, close family life, and kinship links. Kinship links means blood relationship or relatedness or relationshipness, and a focus on communal organization. Next, the modern business phenomenon of the Asia were built on this common culture is marked by hierarchy of relationship that define how people work and live with each other: ruler, subject, father, son, husband, wife, older person, younger person. Therefore, in each, the former is regarded as protecting the latter, which is the youngster, while the latter respect and obeys the former. So, in the other words, it means the youngster have to respect the elders. Back to the first point, which is Chinese, Korean, and Japanese share similarity. We can see the old tales, the script writing, the writing. It kinds of similar, which are the symbol, and also even the legend, or you can call the mythos, like what nine tail stories. In Japanese it pronounced QB, and in Korea, if I'm not mistaken, Gumiho. 4.1 Chinese Empire. The introduction. East Asia cultures developed largely through the interaction of past Chinese civilizations and empires with surrounding territories. So, Chinese Empire have produced a series of technological and cultural achievements. We are going to look first at technological. So, Chinese people have invented paper, printing, compass, crossbow, paddle boats, clocks, and even a gunpowder. So I thought gunpowder is from West, but actually it's from China itself. Second is cultural achievement. So Chinese had developed distinctive written script, styles of paintings, pottery, and building design. So on the right side is an example of Chinese style painting. So about pottery actually a product that formed using clay or other ceramic material. So that is pottery. And lastly, other achievement. Chinese people also have involved in astronomy, mathematics, understanding of weather and minerals, and engineering skills, which is deep mining. So at the right side is deep mining pictures. So this other achievement include mathematics and so on was taken up by Western Europe countries. So they do not. Foundation of Chinese cultures. The first Chinese civilization. By 2000 BC or before Christ, the first civilization of ancient China developed in the Yellow River, or locally known as Huanghe Valley, based on agriculture surpluses and craft skills. So people that time they live like that lah. So the second river known as Yangtze River or Changjiang Basin. So at the right side we can see the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. So the fun facts here, Yellow River is the second longest river in China, whenever Yangtze River is the longest river in both China and Asia. Continue to the Zhou dynasty from 1122 to 246 before Christ. It is Iron Age technology, irrigation, and deeper plowing of the soil to support economic growth. It improved transportation by open wider the geographic trading areas, but the effects here or the cons here, it attracted attacks from outside. Next is Confucius. During the political and social upheavals of this period, Confucius or Confuci is an administrator called for better trained and more able managers to focus on orderly conduct and proper relation in all social contexts. So the picture on the right is Confucius. Then 100 years later, this philosophy made appointment to public office through system of merit-based written exams. The significance is the adoption of this philosophy also led to Confucius' birthday in September as National Teachers' Day. Then we have Taoism, based on the apparently opposing yin and yang. So the Laozi is the founder of Taoism. It's not pronounced Laozi, actually it's Lao Tzu. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it is based on the apparently opposing yin and yang. It includes dark side and sunny side of a hill, negative and positive, female and male, evil and good, heaven and earth. So all these terms are contradict to each other. Yin and yang are complementary, interdependent principles. Every person's duty is to strengthen, control and expand the ki, breath, cosmic energy. The ki pronounced chi, received at birth. If you watch Dragon Ball, ki is like an inner power that comes from inside. So you can throw the ki outside in the form of power. That is fiction story. Qin dynasty around 220 before Christ. This time the country is named China. It imposed strict laws to weld the separate feudal states into centralized and culturally uniform empire with a standardized written script. The capital near modern Xi'an. The armies extended empire southward into the Zhejiang West River Basin and westward as far as Lanzhou. The Great Wall completion caused internal resentment because of the high cost. Next we go to the Southeast Asia Buddhism. After Southeast Asian Buddhism rejected in South China, Buddhist monks from India reached northern China. So Buddhist monks never gave up. So they come to the northern China. Buddhism and spiritual dimension to materialistic Confucianism and brought more systematic framework to Taoist philosophies. The result was seen after 600, which a period of literary and artistic brilliance, religious tolerance, and foreign trade. Illiterate Chinese elite rejected Buddhism as disruptive. After that, Tang Dynasty. After the next 3 centuries, they spread Chinese influence to northeast parts of modern China, Korea, Japan, and northern Vietnam. In early 1020s, Zen Buddhism began in China, then arrived in Korea and Japan. So that's why Buddhism also being influenced in China, Korea, and Japan. That comes from Lamistic Buddhism was established in Tibet from the Anno Domini or AD 600s, combining Indian Buddhism with Tibetan rituals. The Lama leaders are partly religious and partly political, so they are balanced. Dalai, Ocean of Wisdom, conferred by a Mongol ruler in the 1020s. Lamaism had continuous impact on Chinese dynasties that wished to establish political control over Tibet. We move to Mongol inventions, which is 4.1.2. In the 1020s, Mongols invaded China. At the right side, this is the image of Kublai Khan. The Mongol leader had established his capital in northern China at Beijing. He and his descendants ruled as Chinese emperors, driving the center of native Chinese intellectual and economic development southward. Many Mongols intermarried with Chinese. In the 1030s, Chinese grew resentment of the new rulers. disruption and taxes imposed on them, combined with crop failures and famines, and it led to the open chance for rebellion and the establishment of the Ming Dynasty in 1368. Later empires 4.1.3 Ming Dynasty from 1368 to 1644. It is a renewal of Chinese expansion occurred during the advancement of Chinese economy, literature, and education. Admiral Cheng Ho, at the right side, the statue, he ruled from 1405 to 143, ventured beyond India to the Persian Gulf, Red Sea, Eastern Africa, and Madagascar. But no new land conquered, only withdrew from wider linkages. And last but not least, Qing Dynasty from 1644 to 1911. Qing Dynasty is expanded the Chinese realm to its farthest limits in the northeast, Mongolia, Xinjiang, the northwest, Tibet, Burma, which is Myanmar, and Taiwan. This is the expanded realm. Then it brought Lamistic Buddhists and Muslims into western parts of China. In 1820, China was the world's wealthiest empire and produced 1/3 of world GDP. Years passed, political and economic power declined because of the poor internal government faced with Western influences and conflicts. So the power do not last too long. It will collapse soon. So we move to the other countries. Let's go. 4.2 Japan Isolationism. So Japan isolationism means Japan practice closed country or closed economy. So it is the most powerful of kingdom or empires. Ancient traditions place Japan's foundation in 660 BC. The Ainu, which is non-Chinese people, were among the earliest inhabitants but retreated northward as other groups invaded through Korea. The Ainu pictures are as follows at the right. Principle of Shinto encapsulated Japanese traditional values in a national religion built on animism, ancient myths and customs. Shinto is a pantheistic religion, and Shinto involves emperor worship and Japanese superiority. It became an instrument of political control. In Shintoism, both living and non-living objects possess spirits. Mount Fuji and other mountains being given special reverence. Japanese crowded into the lowlands and avoiding mountains because they are feared to, first, volcanic eruption, second is earthquakes. So at the left side we have an example of those what Japanese fear. First is volcanic and second is earthquakes. Japanese Buddhism tolerates Shintoism. Both are followed by the most population. And then Chinese Taoism and Confucianism also influence into social practices. Japanese emperors resided at Kyoto, retiring from public life and delegating administration of the country to leading families of court nobles. From the year 1 and 100s, feudal lords took over the imperial administration, and armed samurai warriors under a shogun, which is military leader, acted over the heads of the powerless court. Also at the right is Tokugawa Yoshinobu, the last shogun, in 1867. The shoguns dominated Japan and largely maintained its isolation from the rest of the world. The last shogun resigned in 1867. The Meiji Emperor regained his position as titular head of a government. Titular means holding a purely formal position or title without any real authority, so it is not official. In 1889, the emperor became a figurehead and political power, and however, political power was taken by leading figures in the parliament.
Next is 4.3 Korea origins. The Korean people base their sense of nationhood on shared blood and ancestry and ethnically. That's why there is no difference between North and South Korean. The area that is now North Korea was the center of the first Korean kingdom, around which the peninsula was unified in the AD 600 decade, long time ago. After the Mongol invasion and retreat, Confucian principles of government were adopted and Buddhism was displaced as the major religion. From 1392 until 1910, the Yi dynasty that had been founded in Seoul had ruled the Kingdom of Korea, even though it became issue to Chinese intrusion in 1644. In addition, in the alleged military power, the closeness to Japan allured aggressive interest. In 1894 until 1895, as rebels opposed the Korean government, the newly strengthened Japanese forces overran Korea, defeating both Chinese and Russian attempts to aid the Koreans, and Japan take over Korea in 1910. To adapt in the faith and practice unique way, Korean now take the mixed religions. As you know, there are a lot of religion in Korea, such as Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Christianity, Islam, and other religions. North Korea and South Korea inhabited the hilly Korean peninsula that expand southward from the Chinese border throughout the Yalu River. The peninsula nearly touches Japan at its southern end. In the year 900, before they moved in different directions, the two Koreans share a prevalent ethnicity and history. The United States of America and Soviet armies conquered Japan and split up the free North and South Korea at the 38th parallel by the end of the World War II. Thus, the Soviet Union began to administer North Korea, while the South Korea administered by United States. In 1948, creates the independent republic. They create the independent republics. In 1950, South Korea are conquered by North Korea forces. Moreover, the presidential visits led to gather of Korean families that had been separated for 50 years. That's a long years. When the two countries accumulated some momentum from their talk of reunification, both countries actually had doubt about such a move. Recently, there have been intensifying tensions between both of the countries, which is known as South Korea. In 2010, the North Korea was claimed responsible for the penetrating of the South Korean warship and for the demise of 48 sailors on board. Also, the shelling of Yeonpyeong Island, reportedly in retaliation, artillery fire near it by South Korea. 4.4 Responses to European intrusions. Introduction. The Portuguese led the European expedition to the region at the start of the 1500 decades, but were soon followed by the Dutch, Spanish, French, and British. Although European colonists never occupied China, Korea, or Japan, the arrival of traders, missionaries, and military forces affected them all. Their partial incorporation into Western global economic and cultural system began. 4.4.1 China resists colonization. In 1557, the Portuguese established Macau as the first trading port on the Chinese coast. China resists other attempts to set up trade or political links until the global economic system expanded during 1800 decade. The British East India Company raised demand for Chinese tea exported through the southern port of Guangzhou, Canton. At first, the company paid for tea in silver but replaced silver with opium from India as the trade increased. In 1796, to preserve its privileged trading position at Guangzhou, the company bowed to the King Emperor's ban on importing opium to China. However, the company relied for an increasing share of its income on its Indian monopoly over the production and distribution of opium, and it sold the drug in open auctions in India. Private merchants then took it to the Chinese coast. By 1819, the opium trade, stimulated by lower prices, increased so much that it exceeded the value of tea exports and required payment in Chinese silver, draining those resources. When a Chinese official reasserted the policy of forbidding opium imports, the Opium War of 1841 and until 1842 forced the Qing government to sign Treaty of Nanjing. This treaty established a framework for continuing British trade with China and the opening of other ports. The port of Hong Kong was built on Surrender Island at the entrance of the Zhujiang, which is Pearl River estuary. The Kowloon Peninsula opposite Hong Kong Island was ceded to Britain in 1852, and in 1898 Chinese leased the new territories in Britain for 99 years. 4.4.2 Destructed Chinese Republic. In 1912, the Republic replaced the enfeebled Qing dynasty. Sun Yat-sen, who had experienced some years of exile for rebellion in the 1890s, and his Kuomintang Party, Kuomintang or the Chinese Nationalist Party, claimed overall political power. Attempts to reunify China under a common government in the 1920s and 1930s, however, were hampered by strife among local warlords, a communist rebellion, and Japanese attack. The main Japanese invasion of China began with 1933 and expansion out of the northeast, which the Japanese army had occupied early in the 1900 decade, followed by a general declaration of war in 1937. The Kuomintang and the Chinese Communists united in resistance. 4.4.3 Japanese aggression. After 1867, the new Meiji government of Japan had concluded that it should take major action to prevent world domination by Western countries. The Meiji leaders followed the Western world path to international political power through rapid industrialization. At the end of 1800 decade, its new military power enabled Japan to conquer Taiwan and Korea and to win a war against Russia that enabled it to take Manchuria in northeastern China. The government encouraged drive for modernization in Japan, also strengthened economic stability. Manufacturing provided the basis of modern Japanese growth. New factories built in the coastal zone from Tokyo to Osaka made iron and steel, ships, constructions, engineering products, and textiles. The economy responded to the external trading pressures as well as a national desire to be a military power. In the early 1900 decade, Japanese government became more democratic and social groups established political parties and labor unions. In the period preceding World War II, industrial expansion was based on government business links, cheap labor, large number of small businesses, and improved infrastructure. Overseas, Japan became known for its cheap goods and often of mediocre quality. The 1930s economic depression, when other countries raised tariff charges against cheap Japanese import, led to an internal pact between Japanese military leaders and the elite families, the Zaibatsu, who owned the biggest industry. The military leaders took over political power and shifted industrial production to naval ships, air force planes, and other military equipment. This phase culminated in World War II. After invading China, the Japanese military industrial war machine, evoking the past glories of the shogun leaders and overriding the civil government, occupied much of Southeast Asia and many Pacific islands. Japan's antagonism towards the United States came to a head with the surprise attack on the US naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. In December 1941, the Pacific War that followed was a major part of World War II and ended in the 1945 defeat of Japan with the destruction of much of Japan's industrial capability by US bombing and post-war. As you know, the Hiroshima bombing was very big. During World War II, the military leaders promoted themselves as a master's race. The rest of East Asia was made wary of Japanese political imperialism by the harsh manner in which the Japanese occupied other countries. Prisoners of war and civilians in occupied countries were used as forced labor, and some women were made sex slaves for soldiers. After 1945, groups in the formerly occupied countries pressed for redress, and in the 1990s, the Japanese government apologized to them. So 5.0 is Asia multinationals. We take an example of Toyota from Japan products and the philosophies of Toyota. Japanese, South Korean, and Taiwanese export of manufactured goods and foreign investment led to the growth of huge multinational corporations. From Japan, automakers such as Honda, Toyota Lexus, Nissan, and Mitsubishi, together with electronics and electrical goods makers such as Sony, Sharp, Fujitsu, Toshiba, and Panasonic, built worldwide brands manufactured in many countries from South Korea. Multinationals such as Hyundai, Samsung, Daewoo, and Lucky Gold Car penetrated markets around the world, while Taiwan's smaller companies dominated aspects of IT products. Many people and many Japanese and South Korean employees, from managers to technical staff, work abroad in subsidiary companies of multinational corporation, which is MNC. In the 1980s and 1990s, short business trips abroad grew from 600,000 to over 2 million in Japan and from just over 100,000 to nearly 1 million in South Korea. Government employees in overseas embassies also doubled during this period. These figures are similar to those in Europe and North America, demonstrating the growing role of these two East Asian countries in the global economic system. So we will talk about the example of Toyota. So, a Japanese company named as Toyota is the world's leading car maker in year 2007. Toyota's policies remained successful as it expanded export and manufacturing abroad. Toyota adopted four philosophies at each company. So this is the philosophies of Toyota. There are four, which is Jiroka, Kaizen, just in time, and construction of cost competitiveness for the 21st century. So the first one is Jiroka, automation with human intelligence, combining high quality, short delivery times, and low cost production. Next is Kaizen, creating continuous improvement based on the idea that small ongoing positive changes can reap major improvement. Next is just in time, directly delivering the components as soon as it is complete and done. And lastly is construction of cost competitiveness as for the 21st century. Cut the cost at billions of dollars by reviewing its design, manufacturing, and other costs with the objective of better using equipment and human resources. 6.0 sub-region. We will talk about Japan, the Koreas, and China, Mongolia, and Taiwan. 6.1 sub-region, Japan. They have three subtopics of economic activities of Japan, which is manufacturers, automobiles, agriculture. The example of agriculture in Japan is barley grass, and lastly is services. Example of what entertainment in Japan. 6.1.1 manufacturers, which is automobiles. So we will take the example of company from Japan, which is Toyota. Toyota was the world's first automobile manufacturer to produce more than 10 million vehicles per year. That's a huge number. As of December 2019, was the 10th largest company in the world by revenue. The name of the company is Toyota Motor Corporation. The Toyota headquarters located at Aichi, Japan. The company was founded by Kiichiro Toyoda in 1937. Toyota Motor Corporation is a Japanese multinational automotive manufacturer. Toyota also is the global market leader in sales of hybrid electric vehicles and one of the largest companies to encourage the mass market adoption of hybrid vehicles across the globe. Lastly, Toyota is also a market leader in hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. So 6.1.2 agriculture, barley grass. We will talk about agriculture first before before I talk about the example of agriculture, which is barley grass. So the starting of agriculture in Japan is Japanese farm is occupied small areas of arable land within the hilly and mountainous country, often intermingle with housing and industry that can pay higher prices than farmers could afford without subsidies, by which the government maintains agriculture as a significant sector of the economy. After 1945, the Japanese government bought rice at a price that enabled the farmers to mechanize and tariff protect them from world market competition. New tasters from Western foods, however, halved rice demand after 1960. The rice that could not be sold formed a store mountain that was too expensive to export. Rice acreage fell as farmers converted land to cultivate vegetables and fruit, reducing the rice store. Rice still costs Japanese consumers 6 times what America pay, then 13 times what Thais pay, which is Thailand. Although subsidies made farm income secure, migrants from rural to urban locations for the better paying jobs, better education opportunities for children, and social life half the rural population from 1960. After 1970, only 12% of farmers work full-time with the off-farm jobs. The remaining farmers were often aging and found it difficult to compete in a world of declining subsidies and rising foreign competition. The size of the most farm remain uh, stable. However, because land increased in value and many owners held on to their property as a family investment. In the early 2000s, Japanese farmers faced new shocks, which is improved transportation links, and refrigeration brought a large quantity of Chinese tomatoes, eggplants, onions, and garlic bulbs to Japanese supermarkets. For example, on Tokyo's wholesale market, Chinese shiitake mushrooms sold for less than one-third the price of the Japanese varieties and quickly took a 40% share from Japan's 30 30,000 shiitake growers. Forest product and the bulrushes used for making tatami mats are also under pressure from cheaper Chinese sources. So next we will talk about the example of agriculture in Japan, which is barley grass. So the company that make the barley grass is the Toyo Green Farm. So the headquarters is located at Fukuoka. The company grow and manage barley grasses, the owner. It has been manufacturing health food and cosmetic in Japan and barley grass for powder beverage called Aojiru. Aojiru is a Japanese vegetable drink most commonly made from kale or young barley grass. Lastly, is they have been committed with producing the organic product by using organic farming. 6.1.3 Services. So the example of services in Japan is entertainment. As you can see, the picture is Universal Studios Japan, one of the most popular entertainment in the world. So the name of the company is USJ LLC. The company owned and operated by USJ LLC, which is wholly owned by NBC Universal. It is located at Osaka. Universal Studios Japan, a theme park with a collection of world-class entertainment for all ages to enjoy. The park opened on 31 March 2001. And they want to be recognized as the #1 entertainment destination in the world. According to the 2014 Team Index Global Attraction Attendance Report, Universal Studios Japan is ranked 5th among the top 25 amusement theme parks worldwide. Wow, that's a great achievement. In 2011, USJ's Christmas tree was recognized by the Guinness World Records as the most illuminated Christmas tree in the world, having 260,498 lights. Wow, that's a large lights. 6.2 Subregion, which is the Koreas. So we will talk about economic activities of South Korea, which is manufacturers, services such as tourism and also entertainment. 6.2.1 Manufacturing and the chaebol. So we will talk about the manufacturing in Korea and also what the meaning of the chaebol. So we'll talk about manufacturing and the chaebol. So the iron and steel, shipbuilding, chemicals, automaking, and textile industry established from the 1950s continue to be important, although in the 1990s there was a swing toward high-tech industry. In it, manufacturing industry focused toward high-tech industry. So South Korean government assists the family-owned companies such as Hyundai, Daewoo, LG, which is Lucky Goldscar, and Samsung. Most of his company located in Seoul. As an example of a chaebol history, South Korea was once called the Republic of Hyundai after one of its most powerful chaebol. Chaebol defined as a large industrial conglomerate that is run and controlled by an owner of family or family in South Korea. A chaebol often consists of many diversified affiliates controlled by an owner whose power over the group often exceeds legal authority. Next is 6.2.2 services, which is we will take an example of tourism in Korea. So we will talk about tourism in Korea. In 2002, the South Korean government signaled its intention to develop the island of Jeju-do, which is known as a Jeju Island, of its southern coast. The island's natural environmental potential includes its pleasant climate and attractive scenery, from an extinct volcano to many waterfalls and beaches. It is a traditional honeymoon destination, center of tangerine plantation, and home of professional women divers who pluck seafood from the ocean floor. The project symbolized South Koreans' sense of vision, their appreciation of the country's geographic positions, and probably their overly optimistic hopes. South Korean officials managing the project make much of their country's central position between Japan and China and the government intention to make business friendly. Jeju is 2 hours flying time from Beijing, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. South Korea has proposed to turn the island into an international business, which is for the tourism hub akin to Hong Kong and Singapore, which is with a free trade area in which English will be a second language. Overseas, a university could set up campuses alongside a science and technology park, duty-free shopping malls, and 20 golf courses. The South Korean government is committed to paying half the project cost of the project, which will require a new airport, better roads, and more hotels. This will depend, however, on large investment for the private sector. Moreover, the local population of 500,000 complains about the lack of consultation and worries about the environmental impacts. The main tourist destination is Seoul, the big city of Korea. However, there are also well-liked tourist destinations outside of Seoul, such as Seoraksan, the national Gyeongju, the historic city, and subtropical Jeju Island, which is that I talk about the first. The Korea Tourism Organization, which is KTO, is responsible for the tourism industry in South Korea. This organization located in Gangwon-do. About 11.1 million foreign tourists visited South Korea in early of year 2012, and making it greater visited country in the world and ranking as 6th most visited country in Asia. So next is the 6.2.3 services, which is we'll take an example of the entertainment in Korea. So let's talk about the entertainment in Korea. Although mostly noted for its economic growth, South Korea also has an increasing regional contribution in popular music that is both cultural and economic. Young pop stars such as Boa develop alongside other youth culture inputs in movies, TV shows, computer games, and fashion. These trends relate partly to South Korean consumers preferring local products to Western music and movies. It is also part of South Korean's developments of knowledge-based service industries. South Korean K-pop bands top charts in Taiwan and Cambodia, while Korean TV dramas are highly rated in Vietnam, China. With its huge and growing market for music, it's a prime target for record companies which envisage setting up the an academy for discovering young Chinese pop stars. The main problem for a South Korean venture in China are the rough band that copy songs and the rampant piracy and copying of CDs. The 2002 World Cup Soccer Finals co-host in South Korea and Japan provided a further platform for wider penetration of both Western and South Korean products. So the entertainment industry in Korea are known as Korean Wave. So this top most popular Korean entertainment company. Therefore, which is SM Entertainment, YG Entertainment, JYP, and FNC Entertainment. This company located in Seoul. So since the beginning of the 21st century, the Korean wave has become a powerful worldwide occurrence, heavily affecting the modern cultures, music industry, film industry, television industry, and behavioral feeder diverse people throughout the world. So this is the example of entertainment in Korea. They have a K-drama, K-pop, and reality show. So the K-drama, such as Goblin, The Lonely, and Great God, Innocent Defendant. What else? The Descendant of the Suns, It's Okay Not to Be Okay, and other popular K-drama. So next is the K-pop. K-pop is the very popular in the world music. So they have male and female group, which is EXO, BTS, Big Bang, CNBLUE. For the female, which is Blackpink, the most popular one, Twice, what else? The Girl Generation, the old one, and other popular groups. So the next is the reality show. As everyone know, Running Man. Everyone know this reality show because of the funny things happen in that reality show, and also such as the Return of Superman. They will talk about the son of the popular artist in Korea, and other things like the child's neighbors. So they will talk about the foreign foreigner that stay at Korea, how they survive, how they work, and other things.
Next, we are going to look more on sub-region China, Mongolia, and Taiwan. This is the map of China, Mongolia, and Taiwan. So the mostly the green one is China's region, and the pink or red is Mongolia, just next to each other. And Taiwan you cannot see because it's small, it's below China. So for China, Mongolia, and Taiwan, I'm going to summarize first. Starting from China, China has 20% of the world's population. In 1976, still under communist regime, it emerged from isolation and it instigated a mixture of industrial development, greater agricultural productivity, and greater national unity. It interacted with the global economic system in exporting its product and importing foreign capital. China's agriculture became more productive after 1976, but is near the limit of area expansion. The country's industries grow rapidly in southern and coastal China, but elsewhere need new plants and infrastructure. China's economy is now a mixture of state-controlled enterprises and foreign multinational and local investment in manufactured goods for export. Then we have Mongolia. Mongolia remains poor and isolated, has a semi-arid climate and was under Soviet Union domination until 1990. After losing Soviet financial aid, its economy struggled with transition. As for Taiwan, Taiwan claimed as an integral part of People's Republic of China, prospered as an independent developer of high-tech products and invested large sums in mainland China. So that's it for the summary of this subregion. But I'm going only focus on economic activities of Taiwan, which is we have agriculture, we have industrial manufacturing, we have services, tourism. So let's take a look. Before I'm going to explain about agriculture activities, I'm going to mention Taiwan most trading partners, which is third one is China, followed by US and followed by Japan. So let's take a look at agriculture, which is rice, vegetable and fruit. These are the most popular in Taiwan. The main crops are rice, betel nut, cocoa, citrus, mangoes, lychees, bananas, pineapples, wax apples and Asian pears. So by saying this, I'm feeling hungry because those fruits are delicious. And rice mostly are being worked at Eden Enterprise Co., which is the largest supplier of rice in Taiwan. The paddy field most located at Ho Mei City, Lukang City and Chuanghua City. Eden Enterprise actually was established by 5 Cheng siblings back in 1987. So these 5 siblings insist on their father's motto, which is production of rice is the business of conscience, and their belief on their product is providing high quality other than safer product. So this rice is the most valuable cash crop in Taiwan with an annual yield worth with US dollar with 1.17 billion in 2013. 6.3.2 we have industrial manufacturing, electronic and semiconductor. Taiwan has become the world's leading supplier of computer peripherals, including motherboards, monitors, mice or mouse, interfaces, network cards, and graphic cards, and holds the largest market share of notebook computers and semiconductor. Investment by chip maker. These computer parts are invested by chip maker Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co. So I'm going to tell more about Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co. This company or this organization has been founded in 1987, same as the Yidon Enterprise, the previous agriculture company. So this is the world's first dedicated semiconductor foundry. So TMSC is the popular company in the world that provide computer parts. Its headquarters and main operations are located in the Hsinchu Science and Industrial Park in Hsinchu, Taiwan. In year 2000, Taiwan was the world's 4th largest computer hardware supplier. So it's mainly because of the TMSC company that provide the supplies like computer parts and so on, that makes Taiwan one of the 4th largest in 2000. Lastly, we have services, which is tourism. Tourism affairs are managed by Tourism Bureau of Ministry of Transportation and Communications of Taiwan. In 2005, 87% of Taiwanese had domestic travel for their tourism activities, in which the Kenteng National Park became their most favorite destination. So Taiwanese support their own country and economy will be increased. So we have to support more local rather than going travel on board. So this location, which are Taipei, Hualien, Tainan, Kenteng, Chiayi and Nantou, also become tourism place. So most location that tourists or Taiwanese go to Taipei is Zangshan District, Zhongzhang District, Wanhua, which is the waterfall, Datong, and so on. New southbound policy or closer ties with Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand save the tourism industry. The visitors number to Taiwan hit a record in 2019, rising 7% from a year earlier. So this policy has helped them to polish their economy and increase their gross domestic GDP and GNI. So about new southbound policy, it is initiative from government of Taiwan that aims to enhance cooperation and exchange between Taiwan, 18 countries in Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Australasia. Australasia consists of New Zealand, Australia, and other neighboring islands. So that's all for this presentation. Thank you for your cooperation, for your attention. So I hope this boring and static presentation can help you only a little. So thank you so much. And special thanks to Sir Shazir because of the guidance. And lastly, stay safe, keep your distance, and wash your hands or apply sanitizer. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.